Hello, welcome to WASHTalks, organized as part of the biannual steering committee meeting of the Water Supply and Sanitation Collaborative Council. My name is Eileen Palmer, and over the next 3 days, we will have experts from the field and dedicated WSSCC family members speaking with us. Today, I'm pleased to have Dave Trouba, who is our steering committee member for the global seat, here with me, and so I'd like to ask Dave some questions. So firstly, let's talk about World Toilet Day. It's next week, Tuesday, November 19th. There's 4.2 billion people without access to safely managed sanitation. There's 673 million still defecating in the open, and 3 billion people still lack access to a basic hand washing facility. Let's talk about the magnitude of these problems, particularly for those without access.
Well, that's a good question. Thanks, Eileen, and thanks to WSSCC for inviting me and others to participate in this fabulous series, and hello, internet world. So you put out some pretty big numbers there, pretty staggering numbers, and I think the important thing to remember is that numbers like 4.2 billion people without sustainably managed sanitation, it's made up of a whole lot of little numbers, and those little numbers actually represent people. So 4.2 billion people is not just a number, it's a lot of people who have, on an individual basis, hopes, needs, aspirations. They have a life quality which is either better or worse, often determined by how much access to sanitation and hygiene they have. And that's why the theme of this year's World Toilet Day in Leave No One Behind is so important, because we're not talking about leaving 4.2 billion people as a big group behind. We're talking about not leaving 4.2 billion individuals behind when it comes to sanitation and hygiene. So sanitation and hygiene are absolutely critical to everybody's quality of life. We know that sanitation, good sanitation and good hygiene when it exists, it's good for people's health. It's good for their social development and their dignity. It's good for their economic empowerment. It's good for the environment which is around them. And it's good for educational opportunities, which is especially important for children. So we know that these things, which sanitation and hygiene are absolutely vital for, we want to make sure that everybody, by 2030, through the Sustainable Development Goal Framework, has access to. And we also want to remember that the Sustainable Development Goals are covering a whole range of issues, from sanitation and water, but also clean and sustainable cities, climate change, health, education. They're not standalone goals, they're all incredibly interlinked. And I think that's important to remember on this World Toilet Day as it's coming up. And with the theme of Leave No One Behind, the important thing is to remember is that people who are marginalized or in vulnerable situations for some reason, the lack of access to sanitation and hygiene, it hits them harder and it hurts them the most. And it takes the most effort to reach them in different ways and to elevate their voices so that they are seen by policymakers and others in their countries, so that in the end they, like everybody else, have access to good sanitation and hygiene.
Thank you, Dave. Picking up on this, you had mentioned this year's theme of Leave No One Behind, Toilets for All for World Toilet Day. It's a dignity protector, it's a lifesaver, it's an opportunity maker.
Yes.
Can you elaborate on how it is a dignity protector?
Yeah, I mean, toilets, latrines, sanitation and hygiene, they are a lot of things. They drive economic development, they support educational gains, but people's basic dignity is at stake when there's a lack of access to sanitation and hygiene, especially for the most vulnerable and the most marginalized. What we want to remember is that access to sanitation and hygiene, it's a human right, flat out, no questions about it whatsoever. It's a human right. Everybody has it, which means that at some point, soon, progressively, they need to get it, which is why the theme of Toilets for All, as part of this year's World Toilet Day, is very important. And when we think about dignity, I think we don't have to think about those other people who don't have access to sanitation and hygiene. We can actually think about ourselves. How would we feel if we didn't have a toilet nearby, but we had an urgent need, and we needed to go to a field to openly defecate, and there's no bush around, and we're worried that somebody might be watching us? We wouldn't feel so good. How would you feel if you're a woman and you held it in all day because you only had access to shared, not very well maintained toilets, so you wanted to hold it in all day and you would go at night, but your path to go to the toilet was not well lit, so you were at risk of violence, of sexual harassment, of other sorts of abuse. How would you feel if you were a young girl and you had your monthly menses and you didn't have any place to go in your school to change your sanitary napkin, or you didn't have any access to sanitary napkins? You would not feel good. In fact, if you're a girl, quite likely you might stay home from school for 3 or 4 days a month, which in the end impacts your own educational opportunities. So the idea of toilets for all, the idea of leave no one behind, the idea of sanitation and hygiene as a protector and an accelerator of dignity and rights is absolutely critical.
Well, very holistic answer. Thank you, Dave.
Oh,
My final question for you
okay.
is, you're a former staff member of WSSCC and now sit on our steering committee. How do you see how this organization has evolved over your tenure here?
Well, the organization, the Water Supply and Sanitation Collaborative Council, it plays an important role in the whole water and sanitation and hygiene sector. The thing that we have to realize is that we are now in the Sustainable Development Goals era. So there's a global development agenda which is taking all actors, whether they're big or small, whether they're at the global, regional, or national level, they're giving us a context within which to work. And it's also reminding us that what we do on sanitation and hygiene, it should integrate into, link to, and help improve educational outcomes, health outcomes, quality of living environment outcomes. So the WSSCC, like all organizations working in development in general and WASH in particular, they've had to look at themselves over the last couple of years and figure out, well, okay, exactly, where do we fit in this SDG era? What do we bring that is both value added in a sector and complements and does not compete with others? And for my own point of view, WSSCC has an important role to play in a number of areas. The thing to remember, going back to those numbers that you spoke about at the beginning, is that there are 4.2 billion people without access to safe, sustainably managed sanitation and hygiene. And there's a lot of stigma and taboo attached around things like menstrual hygiene management. And the places that people go to outside of their home, schools, healthcare facilities, public markets, quite often they don't have very good sanitation either, right? So the world's sanitation and hygiene challenge, it's a huge one. It's so huge that actually we can never have enough of what I consider, or what I like to say is more. We need more people, we need more ideas, we need more money, we need more innovation, we need more organizations all putting effort into sanitation and hygiene in this SDG context and linking it to other goals that are out there. So the critical role that WSSCC can play, by the way that it's set up, is number one, serving as a convener of other entities working in water, sanitation, and hygiene. Essentially be a kind of table that others can come around to talk about the issues and to try to make progress on them. This is also important because as you get more entities and more organizations that have very specific capabilities and qualifications, as you get them all working in the WASH space, there can be opportunities for either competing with each other or overlapping or non-alignment of what they're trying to do. So WSSCC can play a good role in helping make sure that everybody is moving in the same direction. WSSCC is not the end-all and be-all. There are lots of great organizations in the sector, but this is something that the council can do. Another thing that's very special about the council is that it has a footprint which links from the global to the national. So WSSCC has a lot of direct interventions and operational work on the ground, which the practical experience gained from that, in addition to the actual positive outcomes that are achieved in terms of people who have access to sanitation and hygiene now, the actual experience gained can be shared with others in the sector at the national, regional, and global level. It can be used to influence policy at the global level, and at the same time, WSSCC as a global actor can take these discussions that are happening globally and bring them to countries where actually the sustainable development agenda is being driven and where success is being achieved. So I think WSSCC has an important role to play in this sector over the next 10 years. It has an important role to make sure that the voices of people, those that are currently left behind, are no longer left behind. It has an important role to be a champion for not itself as an organization, but the people who we in the development sector all serve, and that is people in countries around the world who don't have access to sanitation and hygiene. It's not about us, it's about them. And I think if we all remember that, then we have a much better chance of leaving no one behind, of achieving the Sustainable Development Goals by 2030, or if not achieving them, having the world on a trajectory and a level of acceleration that means that they will be achieved within the lifetime of all the people who are on the planet. The last thing we want to do is to leave those people behind, because as we said earlier, when it comes to health and children, lack of sanitation and hygiene claims the lives of nearly 500,000 people every year. It's ridiculous in this age when we have probes flying to the outer reaches of the solar system, and we have landed on the moon already 50 years ago, and we all have devices in our hands which can connect us to anybody elsewhere in the world. Why can't we solve the sanitation and hygiene issue? We can. It's possible. We can do it.
Thank you. That is a solid note to leave it on. Thank you very much, Dave. Join us soon. We have Caroline van der Voorden. She's the head of our technical unit for WSSCC, and our Global Sanitation Fund Program Manager from Nepal, Sudashrestha. Sudashrestha.